So Sphere launched, and immediately after launch, there was a bit of a spike. It settled back down, but it's been able to have some pretty strong upward trends. It's got it's got some interest, but I wouldn't call it significant interest. I think it's one where people are not sure of it. I started noticing that there was some search activity queries where people were trying to learn a little bit more about it. And I purposely held off on doing significant amounts of coverage because I wanted to give them the time to let the dust settle. It's similar to what I did with Everrise. They were building a lot and they were trying to establish a lot, and I didn't want to go in without fully having a good sense of what it is that they were going to do. Now that we're here, let me go through this start to finish. Of course, the site is spherefinance.store. Sphere as in a globe, right? Spherefinance.store. I want to stress again, I encourage anybody that's doing this to take a look at it yourself. I'm not giving you any recommendations. I'm saying I'm just going to go with what I see. And from there, I expect you will go and take a look at it if it sounds like something that you might be interested in for your portfolio. But I'm not giving any recommendations about it because I can't. I might give a statement, but it's not a recommendation that you do or don't. It's a recommendation to look at it and then make your own decision as to what you're going to do about it. So Sphere Finance is on the Polygon network. Although it's on the Polygon network, they have bridged over to different networks. They did a private sale and then they did a public sale, and they built mechanics around this that I called out before might cause some concerns for different people and what they're trying to do is they're trying to manage stability of the project. So they built a number of different things, arguably that are copies, I would say, of things like Libero, as an example. It's arguably kind of a copy of what Libero is trying to do. The way that this works, and just to break down, they went through and they built this out and then they submitted for audits. The audits were mostly completed. They said that they had a Solidity finance audit. I didn't see the Solidity audit there. The link isn't correct. But they did get through a CERTIC audit, and then they did KYC through Obsidian. I wasn't aware of Obsidian, so I wanted to dig a little bit deeper to try to understand what Obsidian's audit methodology was. It looks like they're reasonably new, but I wanted to give them a fair chance. The challenge is that most of these KYC orgs don't let you have access to the data that they KYC'd, which I think is important. I want to be able to see what it is that you did. Who are you? And this goes to my first down point of Sphere Finance. There's no evidence anywhere on the site of the who's. You don't see names, you don't see faces, you don't see anything. I think that's a concern. It's a strong concern, because any project that we should be able to get to that data from your website. Who are you? What do you look like? What is your name? How can we find you on LinkedIn, ideally? So I would call that out as top of the list. Is the KYC, I understand it's KYC by an org, but they're lacking in our ability as an investor independently to go in and see who these people are from our perspective. So that's number one. Number two, they do have a white paper. Unfortunately, it's the garbage Git book, and anybody that's been listening to me for an extended period of time knows I can't stand the garbage Git book. I'm frustrated to see that it is the garbage Git book. I understand why they have it, and I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm saying that they need to have a PDF. You've heard me. I need to see a PDF so I can hold you accountable. And with something like this, as complex as it is, I definitely want to see something other than the Git book, because it's not that I don't trust them, but I don't trust them. So any message or any developers listen on this one on Sphere, I want a PDF that is stamped. You can use the Git book to create it, but I need a PDF so I can hold you accountable. We already had situations where tokens changed after they published the garbage Git book. That's why, because I don't trust it and I don't want to see it. And I don't know why we keep doing, I do. It's because it's easier for them to make edits, and I got it. Use it to make the edits and then publish a PDF. I'm going to always hold to that one. The content of it's fine. I don't trust them not to make arbitrary changes midstream. I looked at the graph. The graph has a rebase structure to it, similar to the other Titano forks. The graph is clearly indicative of the rebasing doing what it's supposed to do. It's a steady growth graph, but when I looked a little bit deeper, the one thing that stood out to me is the volume is extremely low on this. There's hardly nobody actually transacting with this thing. And I don't know if that's because of a lack of awareness. I'm assuming it is, because the thing is, it seems like there might actually be some sort of a time zone consideration to it, because what I saw was that like early in the morning, like crack of dawn, like 4 a.m. Pacific, there were significant amounts of transactions. And then as the day goes, it just dwindles. It just drops off. So like an hour ago, they had about 350,000 in volume, which isn't terrible, but it's not as high as I would expect it to. But then like at 3 a.m., you had like 1.4 million. And then yesterday you had 5 million. So it was dwindling, and I couldn't see anything other than what appears to be international company or individuals that are buying in during those other time zones. This would indicate that perhaps the awareness in the United States isn't there. Like maybe they didn't market it well in the United States, because I'm not sure why I would see that. I've never seen that with any project where you've got this time zone consideration to it. So I looked a little bit deeper, and I didn't see excessive amounts of shilling. I do see some, but it's not like crazy amounts of, nutso shilling like you saw with Seifu, right? I didn't see, it seemed like they didn't do aggressive shill push. Now, I can't tell if that was intentional or not, because they don't have like a roadmap on their sites. That's issue number 3. There's no roadmap, so I can't tell what is their plan, going forward. What is their marketing strategy? What do they plan to do? I don't see any of that. So I have no way to know if that's something that they intended to do, like they intended to not advertise heavily, or they did, or whatever. I'm not sure on that one. Let me clarify when I say no roadmap, because I want people to not be confused. A roadmap is, here's what we plan to do at certain points in time. Their site has something they call a roadmap, but it's not a roadmap. It's basically like, I would call this like strategy. It's not a roadmap. So when they say liquidity bootstrapping, quote, using launch funds, we will prioritize the purchases of valuable governance tokens from other projects. That's a strategy. It's not a task. It's not an action. An action would be, okay, in March of 2022, we're going to create a bootstrap wallet. In April of 2022, we're going to redirect liquidity. In May of 2022, we're going to identify the projects. I'm talking actionable tasks. This is not an actionable task. It's a strategy. In Q2, they say Sphere Games, quote, a deflationary positive sum lottery where no one loses and that there are winners every 3 days. That's not a task. It's a future state thing that you're thinking of doing, or whatever that you built, or whatever it is. That's not a task. A task would be, since it's Q2, okay, June, we're going to build a lottery wallet. July, we're going to create this after that, like tasks, actionable tasks. This is not actionable tasks. That's why I say they don't have a roadmap. They don't have a roadmap. They have strategy. They call it a roadmap. It's not a roadmap. So I wanted to clarify that, because I didn't want people to get confused because they see roadmap on the page. That they have is not a roadmap. When I look at the profitability, because it's steady upward growth, I do see that it has stability. The concern I've got is that the stability is based on the low volume, in my opinion, because once you get a lot of people investing, like early on in the morning, that's fine, but you get higher sell volume prior to buys. It's not pump and dump, but you're not getting consistent buy. It's consistent buy sell, which is okay. So it's steady growth for now. But because there's not this aggressive marketing that I can see, I don't know if it's one that's going to sustain. Like it looks like you're banking on the existing people to just keep on buying dips, if that makes sense. That's fine if that's the plan. It's not in their white paper that it is or isn't. I'm saying that I'm not sure that's sustainable. I'm not sure that you're going to be able to sustain that. It also could be, in all fairness, that it's like SHIB, early day SHIB, where they're trying to create it as a community-based thing, where they didn't want to go aggressively out there and they wanted the community to kind of spread the word. That's great. If that's what it was, great. I think that messaging needs to be on their site. To their credit, they openly say, we did a thing to force you to take profits. But they put, apparently, because I saw this on their social media, which I'll get to in a second, apparently they put a limit on the total amount that you can sell. So it's kind of a whale management mechanic, similar to what I've mentioned on the show. They didn't block selling. I said the taxes could be a concern because they shift the taxes to influence buy or sell behavior. But this limit on the total, I think is a good mechanic as opposed to completely blocking sales or going with the high tax. Like if I were them, I would have gotten rid of the whole tax flux thing, and I would have said, no, just do it where you're managing it like an ATM machine of how much you can withdraw on certain periods. So I like the withdrawal mechanic restriction. I'm not sure I'm sold on the tax part of it. And I want to give them at least credit for thinking through some way to manage whales without blocking them. But the tax is what gave me pause in the preview, and I repeat it here. They have a minimal social media presence from what I can tell. I'm pretty sure they have a telescam, but it's nowhere on their site, which I celebrate. And I applaud that it doesn't look like they're forcing you to telescam. They have a Medium. They have a Discord. It looks like most of their steering is to send you to Discord. I'm not a fan of Discord, but it's certainly better than telescam. And then they have a Twitter presence. And again, I've not seen excessive amounts of shilling on this one. So it seems like they may be just using community word of mouth to grow the project. That should lend itself to credibility and stability because it's not hyped by like the Del Rug Pulls of the world who then would dump on it. That's good. Unfortunately, because of the price movement on the graph, there's a possibility that FOMO happens off the green candles and then those people dump out when you get into a bear situation. It does seem to be reasonably insulated from the bear situations from what I can tell. So that's good that they got that going. Let me close this out talking about the audit. And I'm going to say audit singular because, like I said, the solidity wasn't shown. But the CertiK one's what matters. So in looking at the CertiK audit results, they had a couple of different things called out, mostly around centralization, mostly around the tokenomics. So in terms of the centralization and privileges and things, they had concerns with how the tokens were shifted and how they moved to different contract things. I had one concern here. They called out that, hey, we got this issue with the contract deployer, and I don't want to bore you with the text, but we got an issue with the contract deployer. This means that you could be moving tokens and the people don't know it. And they said, okay, we fixed it and it's going to go to a multi-sig wallet. Multi-sig simply means that multiple people have to agree. You can't just have one person do it. That fixes that concern. But then they said the upcoming V2 contract. That alone concerns me because they're already saying we're going to need to go to a V2. This guy just launched not that long ago, and they're already talking about a V2. You've heard me talk about migrations and the fact that it seems like a lot of projects don't think through some of these problems, and then it's like, oh crap, we got to do a V2. I understand that they at least thought about it and they have a plan for it. I'm saying that it's frustrating that we're still in this groove where we have to do a V2 contract, and I struggle to understand why that seems to be a thing. I'm not sure. Other ones is another issue was the ad liquidity. This one's interesting because basically what they said was when we do this ad liquidity, the contract address is basically draining one of the existing pools. And then you're going to have this other, it's almost like the memory leak version of cryptocurrency. And it's not being done by the contract. And so there's kind of this issue of governance of, well, somebody could get access to this and enrich them and you're building So they fixed this. And then they said, you know what, we'll change this, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to introduce the multi-sig to this one so that we can manage it. But they said we can't lock it because of, quote, possible migrations. Here again, it's talking about we know we're going to need to do a V2. So since we're going to do a V2, we can't do anything more than the multi-sig wallet. This is consistently their response. They're doing it over and over and over and over again. The third one had to do with permissions, the owner permissions, performance, design, the private keys, risk of somebody, draining the project, locking the project. And again, it's, we know, but we're probably got to do a migration and we'll just do the multi-sig to manage this. That's all the way down. That's what they're talking about. They talked about the rebasing. The rebasing, in their structure, they feel like, okay, we got as best we could. And they said, this was standout. They said that the APY that they quoted, which is like 99,000, they can't get to 99,000 for 4 years. To their credit, they don't like broadcast it on their site, flashing like everybody else does, 99,000 APY. So they don't push it in your face. But they said, you're not going to get this 99,000 for 4 years. It goes back to what I said on other projects where I said, there's no way you're going to be able to sustain this APY, certainly not in the first year, without significant mechanics working all together. Here, they're at least admitting, yeah, we know it's not going to be able to do this. It's going to take some time to get that. Quote, the community is well aware of this as we become a deflationary token further down the roadmap. So they're saying that today it's inflationary, and at some point it'll become deflationary, likely due to this migration. Other things were like the fees, third-party dependencies, and error messages, which are minor things. The big takeaways of what I just described is they've got this 99,000 APY, which is unrealistic, and they're assuming that people are reading their Git book to understand that the 99,000 is not immediate, obviously, but it's also not first year. It's going to take you 4 years to get to that. And I think their verbiage is slightly misleading in what they're saying. What they also said was, auto stake happens in your wallet. You don't have to come to the D app. However, they built the D app to monitor it, so that's good. And they said that, we can't know how many tokens you're going to get because of the rebase and the fluctuation. So it's good that they're open and transparent about the uncertainty of a thing. My biggest concern here is they should not assume people are going to read the Git book. If they had a PDF, it wouldn't be that big a deal because you could search for these things. With the Git book, I think what they should do is turn it into a PDF to resolve it, because it does look like they transparently say these things. I just think that the approach, the fundamental approach, is a bit flawed in what that would do. The other thing I would call out, and this is minor, this is me, my nitpicks. As far as their social media, I would strongly advocate getting on Reddit. And the reason I say that is because Reddit's a searchable source. Obviously, they have Twitter and they have Medium, and that helps. But Medium is not two-way interactive like Reddit can be. Reddit has a very strong community aspect, two-way community aspect that I think is lacking. Discord has some of it, but Discord tends to get toxicity at times because of the throwaway nature of the chats. You can't search it, you can't find it, so you can't reference things that happened after the fact unless somebody pins something, and those pins can be deleted. So I'm recommending that they get on Reddit as an additional source for social media official. That's one. Two, I think the CERTIC audit results, the fact they're already disclosed, I like that they're transparently disclosing that there's going to be a V2. I don't like that they need to do a V2 because it means there's something that they didn't think about, and that happens. But certainly there could have been more time to think about it instead of rushing this out in lieu of let's just wait, let's really plan this out, and then realize, oh crap, let's get these things in there. The fact it's on the Polygon chain might be a reason why the volume is low, because Polygon is not the heaviest volume. However, the times that I see for the traffic seem like it's happening international. It's not happening with United States folks, and that would make sense because United States folks are mostly Ethereum. It does say that they are bridged to other networks. Ethereum is listed as one of them. It may be that they didn't ever advertise Ethereum as one of the uses. I'm not sure on that one. So ultimately, I'm not criticizing the project, and I don't think it's a scam per se, but I think there's a lot of, I don't want to say smoke, but there's a lot of smoke in the implementation where it seems like they didn't think certain things through, and it seems like there's risk in terms of the fact we know it's going to do a migration, we don't know when. They're apparently going to resolve some of that stuff. I don't sense that there's a risk that you would lose your money like right away. Like, with Seifu, you're dealing with a guy leading the project who's a known rug puller. So there's a risk. It's a high risk. This is a high risk in sense of loss of value. I don't sense the same high risk in terms of like scam. I don't see that from these. And again, their messaging feels like it's neutral. It doesn't feel like they're rushing you to tell scam or any of that kind of stuff. So that puts positive to me. I would fix the white paper. It needs to be a PDF. And whatever's going on with the Solidity Finance audit, I would resolve that. And I would put names and faces on the site. Finally, that roadmap is not a roadmap, and I would like to see an actual roadmap put in place. Site is spherefinance.store or sphere.finance, either way. to check out Sphere Finance on the Polygon chain. I do recommend you take a look at it. I don't see scam here. I see that they just didn't take enough time, in my opinion, to think about some of these other nuts and bolts that would have ideally avoided a V2 transaction. This is another Titano fork, essentially. So if you already know those, you already know going in what their messaging is going to be.